Tina McQueen's family and friends. Joining me live now is Shadow Minister for Education and Indigenous Australians, Julian Leeser. Thank you for your time. Beginning on that news, you were fellow travellers of a type and came across Tina McQueen plenty of times over the years in the Liberal Party. So how will you remember
I knew
her?
Tina. She was a big figure on the Central Coast in the Liberal Party, and obviously sad at her passing. She was always a lively person engaged in the party, and I'm very sad at this news, as Liberals will be generally.
Yeah, as mentioned, condolences to her families. A lot of talk today around house prices. A correction, would that be a bad thing for the nation and affordability?
Well, what the government's tax policy has done is actually taken a baseball bat to confidence here. What you've seen over the last weekend is clearance rates have dropped, and you don't fix the housing crisis by seeing the value of people's homes drop. You fix the housing crisis by cutting migration, by cutting red tape and by cutting government spending. That's what you do, and that's what our plan's all about.
I mean, none of it's actually taken effect. Rate rises have taken effect. Is it jumping at shadows a bit to say there's a baseball bat on
It's absolutely taken a baseball bat to confidence. I had a small business roundtable in the 2 weeks when we were not here for Parliament. I had real estate agents and accountants talking about the effect it's having on business confidence. People are uncertain about what this will mean, about their affairs, and they're making decisions accordingly. They're not going out and buying, they're wanting to see certainty, and what the government's tax plan has done is reduce certainty for buyers.
If we do see a correction in the order of up to 10% off prices, obviously a lot of different markets, given how unaffordable houses have become for many, would that be a bad thing?
Well, I want to see more people getting into homes, but you get more people into homes by building more homes, and you get more people into homes by reducing demand. That's why it's our policy to cut migration. So the migration rate reflects the number of houses that are constructed. It's why we want to reduce red tape by cutting the building code, and it's why we need to reduce government expenditure to put downward pressure on inflation.
I wanted to ask you about anti-Semitism. Big spotlight on teaching of anti-Semitism, some wanting to avoid it or delay it. Some sort of reluctant to have teach the Diary of Anne Frank to Year 9, saying they're not ready for it. You're saying we should actually possibly move away from focusing too much on the Holocaust. Why?
I think the first thing we need to say is that it's terrible that people, particularly at this time, are refusing to teach about anti-Semitism and refusing to teach the Diary of Anne Frank. That's bad. But what I think we do need to do is rethink the way we teach the Holocaust, because the Holocaust is just the most terrible event where we saw the murder of 6 million Jews. It's a story that teaches you about how Jews die, but for many people it is all they will hear about Jews in their education system. We need instead to address the fundamental causes of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is different to other forms of racism in that it involves conspiracy, control and improper power. And this is why there are some people in the progressive left that indulge in anti-Semitism because it's seen as somehow virtuous. The best cure for this is for people to understand who are the Jewish people and what do the Jewish people believe. Jewish people believe in ideas like the rule of law, equality and human dignity. They are Jewish ideas that are the gift of the Jews to Western civilisation. Unless you put anti-Semitism in that context, you will continue to see the problems that we've had.
And whilst there would be that focus, would you remove teaching about the Holocaust? I noted one teacher spoke about the first thing they used to do was show images of starving children in particular in some of the concentration camps. And like, you can get the shock value, because how could you not pay attention to that and go, OK, how did this happen? Do you still see a value for that? Would that come after? What do you think of the Holocaust itself?
I'm not for 1 minute saying that we should not teach the Holocaust. We need to put it in a context. We need to start by understanding who are the Jewish people, what do they believe and what is their contribution to our civilisation. And then people need to understand why anti-Semitism keeps changing over the centuries, why it keeps reappearing, and to see the Holocaust as a particular example of that. But I think for many people, when the only thing they hear about Jews and the only thing they hear about anti-Semitism is the Holocaust, it actually has a distorting effect, because the Holocaust was such an extraordinary event, such a huge tragedy, that for some people, unless they see that, they don't regard other things as being anti-Semitic.
So that's almost this impossible bar to reach again, as to measure against, if that's your only teaching of it.
That's exactly right. So it needs broader context.
Even though, I mean, a lot of Holocaust teaching does talk about all the lead-up and Jews targeted in a lot of parts of Europe in particular, doesn't it?
When I was at school, I learnt about the ancient Greek and ancient Roman civilisations, and I learnt about Islam as well. We need, as one of the great civilisational contributors to the West, we need people to understand about Jewish civilisation and Jewish thought, including why Jews have been hated at different times and what we need to do to cure the evil of anti-Semitism.
The coalition seems a bit confused sometimes over dealing with one nation. So Angus Taylor yesterday said he wouldn't say, yes, I support multiculturalism. Today, he figured out his line, I don't support Labor's multiculturalism. Are you struggling to grapple with dealing with one nation?
No, I support multiculturalism, and I think actually our leader was very clear yesterday about his support for multiculturalism. In fact, he said quite rightly that it doesn't matter what a person's race is, it doesn't matter what a person's religion is, it's about their values, and that's the values that he's always been sought to propagate, and it's the values he believed, and it's the values he was brought up with. Same for me.
So what about Labor's multiculturalism does the coalition not support?
Well, I think what we've seen in the last couple of years is the worst decline in social cohesion in our history. What we've seen is, people walking our streets with terrorist flags, people taking over the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge in Sydney, and we've seen people not abide by the rule of law. When you list a terrorist organisation, it means you should have nothing to do with them. It doesn't mean you should put their flag up and put their banner.
But what about that as a Labor policy enabling that to happen?
What we need to do is have as our focus Australian values, and that's why we've been clear on the Australian values statement. A commitment to democracy, a commitment to the rule of law.
But we have a values statement for people who do come to the country. We
want to put that front and centre, and the key to multiculturalism, the key to making it work, is to ensure that you're enshrining those values and you're.
So it's an emphasis thing rather than a specific policy you disagree with what Labor's doing. They're not emphasising Australian values enough. That's the disagreement.
We've got John Howard used to have this wonderful phrase, the things that unite us are far greater than those things that divide us. And I think we need to hear more of that, and we need to hear that in the context of those values that unite us.
Julian Leeser, got to leave it there. Appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
National